Farmer Fisher had a fine fat truck. You couldn't see the color for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. And in the back was sows, cows, the farmyard cats, hogs, dogs, the farmyard rats, hares, mares, a pound of pears, billy goats in hairy coats, and a horse, of course, and a ton of turnips on the way to market. Farmer Fisher pulled the choke, and off they drove in a cloud of smoke. Rattle went the tappets, and the crankshaft broke. On the way to market, and with it went the oil, the coil, the piston rings, the steering, gearing, the valves and the springs, and the doors and the floors, and a lot more things on the way to market. The farmer hailed an ancient Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board, and a noise that could not be ignored on the way to market. They tied it to the farmer's truck. You couldn't see the color for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. The Ford revved up to take the load. Up it speeded, down it slowed, and the engine fell out in the road. On the way to market. Next to stop was a smart saloon in a tasteful shade of dark maroon, licensed up till the end of June. On the way to market, they tied it to the rusty Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board. Tied it to the farmer's truck, and you couldn't see the color for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. And in the back were sows, cows, the farmyard cats, hogs, dogs, the farmyard rats, hares, mares, a pound of pears, billy goats in hairy coats, and a horse, of course, and a ton of turnips on the way to market. The smart saloon was hard to beat. It pulled them over 30 feet till the gearbox dropped out on the street. On the way to market. Drove a big sedan, which is up Cape American, 45 gallons in the gasoline can, on the way to market. They tied it to the smart saloon in a tasteful shade of dark maroon. Tied it to the rusty Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board. Tied it to the farmer's truck. You couldn't see the color for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. The big sedan, 'twa'n't no use, but at least it had a good excuse. The darn great thing ran out of juice. On the way to market. Then up came a new three-wheeler, clean, mean, a real scene stealer. See it at your local dealer. On the way to market, they tied it to the big sedan. Ain't got no gas in the gasoline can. Tied it to the smart saloon in a tasteful shade of dark maroon. Tied it to the rusty Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board. Tied it to the farmer's truck, and you couldn't see the color for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. And in the back were sows, cows, the farmyard cats, hogs, dogs, the farmyard rats, hares, mares, a pound of pears, billy goats in hairy coats, and a horse, of course, and a ton of turnips on the way to market. The driver said, "Now please don't scoff," and he put it into gear with a nervous cough. Drove 3 feet and the wheels came off. On the way to market. Then up drove a limousine with a pair of footmen dressed in green. The stereo played God Save the Queen. On the way to market, they tied it to the poor three-wheeler, far from a new three-wheeler dealer. Tied it to the big sedan, got no gas in the gasoline can. Tied it to the smart saloon in a tasteful shade of dark maroon. Tied it to the rusty Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board. Tied it to the farmer's truck, and you couldn't see the color for the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck, all on the way to market. The limousine prepared to try. Mighty engine gave a sigh, and 16 pistons sky high. On the way to market, and with them went the oil, coil, the piston rings, the steering, gearing, the valves and the springs, and the doors and the floors, and a lot more things. On the way to market. Then abroad, a fire of plants, a masterpiece of modern science. The siren singing out defiance on the way to market. They tied it to the limousine with a pair of footmen dressed in green. Tied it to the poor three-wheeler far from a new three-wheeler dealer. Tied it to the big sedan, ain't got no gas in the gasoline can. Tied it to the smart saloon in the tasteful shade of dark maroon. Tied it to the rusty Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board. Tied it to the farmer's truck and you couldn't see the color of the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck all on the way to market. And in the back was sows, cows, the farmyard cats, hogs, dogs, the farmyard rats, hares, mares, a pound of pears, billy goats in hairy coats, and a horse, of course, and a ton of turnips on the way to market. The fire engine didn't stay, seemed they'd a fire to fight that day. Just broke the rope and drove away on the way to market. And with it went its sumps, pumps, a mile of hose, 2 big bumps on the driver's nose. There she goes on the way to market. Farmer Fisher chose his course with a feeling allied to remorse. He went to the back and he fetched his horse on the way to market. Tied it to the limousine with a pair of footmen dressed in green. Tied it to the good three-wheeler, now in need of a good faith dealer. Tied it to the big sedan, ain't got no gas in the gasoline can. Tied it to the smart saloon in the tasteful shade of dark maroon. Tied it to the rusty Ford with a big spare wheel on the running board. Tied it to the farmer's truck and you couldn't see the color of the farmyard muck. In the front was a rabbit and a chicken and a duck all on the way to market. The old horse never once looked back. He jogged on gently down the track. The pigs all cheered and the duck went on the way to market. And the horse, of course, pulled a ton of turnips all the way to market.